For anyone who's wondering why his business is struggling or why it's finding it difficult to pay school fees, or why your relative in your house or your village is always calling you for money, or your cousin or your niece or nephew, it's these three things here. This bucket here is higher inflation. We're facing high inflation, we're facing a fiscal crisis, and then the economy is not growing very fast. So why are we facing higher inflation? Commodity prices are high, there's currency depreciation. I'm sure you all know exchange rate is 7.80 in the black market, even though it has strengthened a bit during the week. Money supply is at an all-time high. I will explain money supply in a bit, because when I tell people that the money supply in Nigeria today, we've never seen it on record. People are wondering where the money is. Where they see the money, but we're at a record high when it comes to money supply. And then of course, insecurity and logistics. Then from the fiscal side, which is government, Nigerian government is, in a nutshell, broke. The government that they are inheriting, that Tinubu is inheriting, is a broke government. So that's a huge problem. And then of course, last but not the least, the economy is not growing fast enough. So these are the three major things worrying Nigeria. Anything else anybody tells you, from an economic point of view, these are the problems. And that also has an impact on politics. And of course, the economy, the social economy in general, that's you and I. Next slide, please. The blue chart, the blue line there, is what you call the NPR, monetary policy rate. The orange line is the inflation rate, and then that's actually a green line, is what we call money supply. What do they mean? So those of us who track the economy, we don't miss these three indicators. One usually gives you an idea of where the other will be. So money supply is money that the government or the private sector pumps into the economy. So if you look at this chart, from around here, this, you can see it started going up from here. That was 2020, during COVID. If you notice, we were all at home. So what the world leaders did, not just Nigeria alone, all the countries around the world, was that they thought that we were going to go into a recession, which we did, and so they started pumping money. In fact, in the US, if you have relatives in the US or you have families in the US, I'm sure they will tell you that they were giving them what we call helicopter money. They are just mailing money into their houses. Because government usually do that when they are trying to jumpstart an economy. Because nobody is spending. So when nobody is spending, somebody has to spend. And I'm sure those who remember Adam Smith and Invisible Hand, typically it's government. Government now comes and tries to spend money. And so Nigeria also did the same. And at that time, Godwin Emefiele, CBN governor, pumped several money. There was also some intervention funds. Intervention funds for agriculture, intervention funds for manufacturing, intervention funds for power. Even in the entertainment industry, there are all sorts of intervention funds. And to make it worse, well, not to make it worse, in addition, the interest rates that they were charging for them was 5%. Just imagine, it was 5%. It was called forbearance. And then they were told, you know what, don't pay principal, just come and collect. It's a good thing. But it has a downside. When you pump in so much money and it doesn't lead to economic growth, it tends to lead to inflation. Because the people you give the money to, you're hoping that they will put it in productive sectors. What if they don't put it in productive sectors and maybe they go and buy G-Wagon and marry a new wife, or send all their children abroad? And if their children are abroad, they have to buy dollar here and send to them. So you basically hit up the economy. While the CBN was also pumping a lot of money into the economy, the government was also doing what? Borrowing too. So the government too was borrowing because oil price was depressed. So there's no money now. Politicians must spend money now. They must pay salaries, they must do their escrows, and they must do what politicians know how to do best. So that also went into the economy. And so what happens in economic theory is proven. When there's so much money in the country and it's not going to, the key word is productive sectors. it leads to inflation. Because think about it, if there's so much money around and you're not using it, you're not investing it in business, you drink more alcohol, you spend more on clothes, you buy more cars, you're just consuming, it's just consumption. And anytime, any price they give you, you go pay. Because the money is there. And so that led to inflation. And because it has led to inflation, the central bank had no choice but to increase its own interest rates. So today, and I'm sure most of us here are businessmen. So right now, if you have cash, you're better off putting that money in fixed deposits because you will get more from it than actually investing it in productive courses. Because when there's high inflation and purchasing power is low, people don't buy. So the question is, what are you investing for? So you have to, those are the sort of trade-offs you have to do. You have to ask yourself, is this the best time for you to invest in your business, or is it time for you to maybe slow down, hold cash? I think cash is king currently. I feel right now cash is king, and it's not just anyhow cash, it's dollars or not naira. Because that naira is just going to keep, depreciating in terms of its purchasing power. Next slide. So this is also another interesting chart, and this is exchange rates. I'm sure everybody is familiar with this. The blue line there is official rate. You can see it's flat, they move. While the top one is the parallel market rate. President Tinubu in his announcement on Monday said he wanted to unify the exchange rates. A lot of people have asked me questions around what does he mean. Unifying the exchange rates does not mean that naira will be strong. Important for everybody to know that. It does not mean that naira will be worse off. All he's saying is that today, if you go and ask for PTA, you tell your bank to give you PTA, they have their own rate. If you import things into Nigeria and you want to pay custom, they have their own rate. If you export things outside Nigeria and you want to bring your dollar in, there's another rate. If you're a friend of people in CBN and you want dollars, they can give you their own rate. Politicians also have their own rate. So different people have their own rates. But what is very important is, for an economy, it doesn't work when there are just so many rates. It causes a lot of dislocation. It's arbitrage, because what's the incentive? You can take exchange rate at 450, you go and sell at 750, instead of you to invest in business. And so Tinubu is saying, you know what, damn that, I don't want different rates anymore, I want a unified rate. Now, there's a difference between having a unified rate and now having a rate that is unified with the black market. That's a different ballgame. In fact, personally, I don't think it's possible to constantly have a black market rate and an official rate that is the same. There will always be changes, and it's normal. I'm sure for some of you who maybe have, who go to the UK and maybe exchange money at airports, you can go to Travelex here. The price might be different from the other one there, and even when you enter town, different prices. So, and then if you go to the black market, maybe you're into, black business, the price you also change for is different. So there are rates. But what is important is people just want what is reflective of a realistic price. And you can only determine it if you allow the market to determine. If I have dollars, if I tell you it's 900, if you want to pay, that's the price now. If you don't want to pay, then I have to do what? Adjust my price. And so we're hoping that when they unify, maybe that's what the Tinubu administration will do. But in the meanwhile, that's why we're where we are. That's why you have that huge disparity, because the rate in the black market, people don't believe the rate in the official market, people don't believe that is the real rate. Right, next slide. Next slide, please. So while we're waiting for that slide, that's what you guys do. So, and you don't believe it. Government needs taxes to run. They budgeted 2.something trillion for taxes this year. It's not even enough. Remember what I said? They are running a 10 trillion deficit. So for the businesses, they're not going to increase taxes, but they are going to collect every single bit of tax that they can collect from you. They will collect it. I'm hearing now that, not that I'm hearing, it's happening already. If you apply for PTA, that's you must show, it's happening now. Yes, if you don't have tax clearance certificate, they are not going to give you this thing. So it's either you pay, and even your homes, you must pay land use charge and all of that. And that's going to keep happening. So businesses as well, don't be surprised when they tell you to pay TV tax. You know, so all sorts, radio tax, everything.
Sex tax. But that actually the highest tax that you know pay. How do you know?
Sex tax. Alright, so in terms of public debt, Nigeria's debt today, which is a huge problem, is about 73 trillion. Yes. When Buhari came, I don't think we were owing up to 30 trillion as a country. But today we are owing about 70-something trillion naira, which is about 160 or so. Yeah, $162 billion. That's what this country is owing. Now, inside that money is CBN money. CBN, they're only CBN 26 or so trillion. Through ways and means. Sometime, I know Council, sometime last week, the National Assembly on Saturday, last week Saturday, not this one, upper Saturday, they quickly had a session. They don't usually meet on Saturday, but they quickly met on Saturday. And they passed a bill to increase ways and means from 5% to 6%. So the reason why they did it wasn't because they were crazy, as much as a lot of people didn't want it, but it just pointed to reality. There was no money for the Tinubu administration to spend or to use to run government. So imagine, how can you just come into a government and there's no money? You can't pay salaries, you can't, come on. So the only way they had to do it was ways and means, because they had already collected, the Buhari had already collected 4 trillion between January and May. They had collected 4 trillion already. And so the Tinubu administration was going to ask for another 1.2 trillion. I don't know whether they paid it yet, but I think the National Assembly passed it, waiting for the president's accent. And so again, if your debt is that your public debt is this high, what does it mean for your investment? What does it mean for the naira? And remember, Nigeria is import dependent. If it was like we were export oriented, it's not a problem. America is the most indebted country in the world. In fact, they just increased their debt ceiling recently. Okay? Yes, last week. The bill was just signed a few days ago. Now, the last slide I wanted to share, could you go down a bit? Could you keep going? Yeah. I just want to share with you, keep going, the economy that the current president is inheriting. Yeah, keep going. Unfortunately, this is not clear at all. It's not clear. Yeah, go on. Yes, this one. So this is the economy that Tinubu is inheriting. In terms of economic growth, we grew at maybe 1% or so over the last 8 years, on average, 1.3%. Inflation rates over the last 8 years, more than double, 200%. So he's meeting an economy that is high inflation rate. When Buhari came in, Nigeria's deficit was 830-something billion. Tinubu is coming in now, he's meeting a deficit of 10 trillion. External reserves are $35 billion. Unemployment rate and underemployment rate is at 56%. That is the economy that Tinubu is inheriting. So if I ask you guys, do you think that in the next 2 years, there's going to be a massive change that's positive for the economy? Do you think maybe things are going to improve in the next 2 years with all of this? It's difficult. So there's going to be a lot of pain before things get better. But nevertheless, there are opportunities. So let me just speak to the opportunities. Like I mentioned, in a high interest rate environment, there is a disincentive to borrow, but there's an incentive to save. So anybody that's coming to ask you for a fixed deposit, use knife and cutlass and slice their hand. Charge the highest you can, because there is no money out there. So they're going to need to pay you high interest rates for your cash. So I've been getting calls from microfinance banks now asking for offering 17%, 18% per annum. So you think about it, if you have 100 million, you give them, they pay you 17 million, 18 million. That's almost like not even bothering to work at all, because that's the environment they're in. So yes, they're paying it.
17.
Yes, 18%, just to save money. Banks are offering 12, 13%, 14. So if you have $1 billion, that's 170 million without doing anything. So ask yourself, do you want that, or do you want to go and invest in a risky business? It's all up to you. In terms of focus areas, the focus areas for this government, if you're looking for where this government is going to, agriculture, that's one. They want to continue with some of Buhari's policies, so that's a focus area. Manufacturing is a focus area, because Nigeria needs manufacturing jobs and Nigeria needs economic growth. So pay attention to their policies around manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very huge space, but we need to pay attention to know where exactly they want us to play in. Oil and gas. Nigeria still needs oil and gas. I think downstream, this is going to be an era, a boom for downstream players, especially with the introduction of Dangote refinery. There's going to be a lot of businesses around downstream, whether it's petrochemicals or whether it's fuel or diesel, whole lot. Fertilizers, mining as well. It's going to be huge opportunities there. Technology as well, huge area for investment. Not just about the building. There are so many businesses that come out, whether it's people that are doing tiles, whether it's painters, whether it's people that are doing rods, iron rods. So it's very good to have, position yourself very well in that area. We think that to get into, but I think that it's going to be huge. I have a friend who came in from the UK 2 days ago, and he was trying to move. He had some luggage and wanted to move them to the east. Came for his mother's burial, and he went to one of these very popular ones. I don't want to name this, but you know the one that the name starts with G. So he was moving the thing to the east, and it's just a simple transfer my goods from Lagos to Onitsha. And then somebody called him from Bayelsa and said, "We're in Bayelsa, what's your address?" And then the thing went on and on and on. Eventually, he had to send someone to Asaba to go and pick the goods. What it means is that it's very difficult to actually move products from Lagos to Abuja, or from Lagos to Port Harcourt, or from Lagos to Osun. It can never happen. The US is bigger than Nigeria. You can move goods from California to New York within 48 hours, within 72 hours. In fact, it appears that it's even better, it's even easier, faster to move goods from US to Nigeria than from Lagos to Ibadan. So what that means is that integrated logistics is an area that I think Nigeria needs to grow. It's difficult now because government is not paying attention. So that is why people who are in that business today struggle. They struggle with a lot of things. The roads are bad. They also need policemen on the road who go around and extort them. They have employees that they can't train very well, so employees don't understand discipline. But once government moves into that area, there's going to be a lot of discipline. And then when there's a lot of discipline, that market will open. Today, if you go to the US, there's no way you will be driving on the freeway in the US, you will not see an Amazon truck. Is it? I don't know where you say. You must see a huge Amazon truck. You will see FedEx. You will see trains moving with goods. Because we are human beings, and human beings love to consume products. So you can't have a Nigeria that wants to be the giant of Africa, the real giant of Africa, not have a solid integrated logistics business. So that's going to happen. Insecurity, I think, is still a problem. So people in that business will continue to make money like they are making money today. They will continue to make money from insecurity. No hard feelings. That's how it is. Whether it's drone technology, I met a lady who is into drone technology. When I sat down with her for 1 hour, that's when I realized the business did this world. She is on the cusp of making something huge from drones. You guys don't understand the business of drone technology. Oh, you know, drone technology. That business is too sweet. All they are doing now is just trying to set up the regulatory requirement and the right laws. Once they sort that out, it's going to be big. Because you see this, you see the way we are jostling for land and trying to, we've not started with sky. Sky is a different thing entirely. So that's one area as well. Of course, we have a YouTube population, so our YouTube population continues to make Nigeria attractive to foreign investors.
Let me use this word. I'm in the public sector, so let me use this word for you. And you in the private sector tell us that government does not have any business in doing business. Okay, we agree. But for what I just told us here now, government is a stimulator of any sensible economy. So except government puts down money down, which will serve as a catalyst and like a social contract that have to help the people to build the foundation in the cabinet. Now, that's what the rest. Now, this one, you have told us the noise about subsidy is about we need money for infrastructure, for other things. But the discount is I'm asking you. You have told us that just like the regulatory economics that the market dictates the prices. What we have been listening to Honorable. Is doomsday. Is doomsday economy people saying that it's as if this subsidy is not really the end of the world for Nigeria or for Nigerians. And you're telling me that if market forces are pulling the prices of fuel down, all of these variables that are putting down, are they still going to be at the same equilibrium like they are putting down? I think they're going to be on the same page with our postulation going forward. Because just like what I've seen in the telecom, what we have seen in what is probably going to come with electricity, I see that if we get our act right, and we get the subsidy and this fuel regime right, and the market dictates the price.
In 2 years, things will be
that we see that all of these variables are not highlighted for us. We're still going to be the same. Or it's going to be because of the monolithic economy that we are. It's going to change the time bit. I agree. Then finally, we are not, this was just a comment. We are not talking to the real people. It's easier to talk to people here. It's easier to talk to the politicians. But what are we doing about it? Call people that are carrying out this activity in civil service. We have to think deep about it and see how we can get more people to go there. Thank you very much, sir.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, sir. I don't know if you would like this question of camera or on camera. It's a simple question. What would you recommend for a nephew? Should he go to jail or should he simply empower? Simple question. For his actions between November, December, and
I listen to you on radio most times,
I think it's a classic FM, yeah? It's classic. I used to listen, but then at some point, I stopped leaving the house very early. But the lucky traffic can teach you some lessons. So, the question I need to ask is that in all of this, I think you have painted a very gory picture for SMEs. You have painted a very bad picture for the SMEs. Like, if there's no need doing business in Nigeria, just go and keep your money in one place, or jackpot, or find dollars by all means. And that's a worry for some of us who we believe in Nigeria, whether it works or not. We have told ourselves we're not going anywhere anyway. Do you understand? Also, we think we have the most fun in Nigeria than all these places. So we would rather stay here, even if it's just for the fun of it. Because it's not easy to carry something outside here. But here, yes. Is it really a bad situation for SMEs? I mean, just tell us what you really think. Should we be hiding our monies under our pillows, or we should invest and bring some value into the economy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a program of Classic FM, I think it's 8 to 8:30. It's called Business Alpha, where we introduce founders, SME owners, and just give them an opportunity to speak to a larger market. That can be hosted by my partner, Wade. And we'll have one on Wednesday.
Lydia, please, just because thank you.
Exactly.
So let me try and respond.
Up here.
So everything on air, now it's 8 to 8:30 Classic FM on Mondays, and on Wednesday, Lagos Talks, 7:30 to 8 a.m.
Question, sir. Can you tell them to record ahead?
Yes. Okay, we do have that. We'll do that. So should government keep spending to make the economy better? That was the first statement you said. So I don't think we want government to spend money because they don't have. If government spends money, they will go and borrow. And then when they borrow, it makes things worse for everybody. Government should stay out of business. What we need government to do, we set the right policies, the right programs, the right guidelines, the right incentives, not to a few people, incentive to everyone. Just once you're able, if government decides now they want transportation to work, they know what to do. You don't need them to come on. You don't need government to come on buy buses and just be putting around. No. Businessmen will buy the buses and run it. Just make sure the roads are okay. Make sure the buses are there. Make sure that when we bring in these buses, we don't have to pay stupid duties. So they will have to fight for business. And when they have to fight for business, they have to crash their prices. And eventually, they won't make, most of their money won't just come from selling fuel. Their money will come from what they do with that whole space that they are. You know, filling station has land. So some of them will turn their distance to offices, into different things. It's just turns to a hall eventually. Because there's going to be competition. That's what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to go back to 180. Except maybe oil prices drop.
So maybe like $7.
Yes. So
with electricity may drop.
But electricity as well may drop too. So I remember one other thing that people need to also understand is that what would happen with cross-country global is just transportation price will go up, food price will go up. But generally, businesses, their operating cost of business will really go up. You know why? Because most of us use diesel. And diesel prices have already gone up. In fact, it's going back down now. You know,
Just like 6.
Exactly. 6.
Yes,
at some point it was 8 something. Because it's only going to go down. People are not buying, so it's going to go down. Okay, so That's for core subsidy. For civil service, look, I 100% agree with you. We had an economic outlook yesterday. And we had a lot of very respectable economists on that one. And one thing that he said was for the civil service, as much as
I can hear ya. Yeah, send me now.
as much as Nigerians like to see, let us have the right people in government. Well, we all say that, right? You know, bring in a technocrat, bring in someone from the private sector. What we tend to forget is that if you like, go and bring Obama to come ahead civil service in Nigeria, he's still going to meet the people there. So we still need civil service reforms. And let's remember, Orosai did a report 10 years ago. That time, so imagine the civil service now. It's not worse than it was back then. So you're right. We still need to do a lot of, civil service reform. And then civil servants actually need a lot of training as well. So you need that as well. Then, you say, what do you do to make it? No, not at all. I actually think that nobody is perfect. I'm not trying to be patronizing. There are a lot of rubbish that the past government did. At the same time, they also did a lot of good things. So I think people, for some reason,
That is
just
former captain.
But let me tell you something. If it wasn't for Emefiele, I don't know what business to do, but trust me, if it wasn't for him, Nigeria would have been worse than Ghana. Just think about it. It could be that he was one of those who created the problems, though, sure. But it wasn't for him, Nigeria would be worse than Ghana. Between 2020 and 2023, it was through the CDM that this government was running. That's how they were able to pay senators, House of Rep members, state, yes. It was 26 trillion, ways and means. If it wasn't for him, a lot of industries would have collapsed. Power sector, manufacturing sector, agri, they would have all been dead. Because they basically funded those sectors. Let's also remember as well, as bad as Nigeria is, has any bank crashed? No. Banks are actually doing what? Making money. Are you seeing what fintechs are doing? No, not round tripping. They are actually making, are you seeing what fintechs are doing? So I think there are a lot of decisions that he made that could have been better. I don't like the way he handled Forex. Maybe because he didn't have too much of a choice. I don't like the way he's handled cash swap is even related. Banning importation of some things and dollars. There's some things that I didn't like. But let's also remember that. Yeah, and then of course his biggest mistake was down into politics. But let's also remember that he was this powerful because you had a government with fiscal issues. Finance minister couldn't really sort out their own fiscal issues. They didn't have revenue. They couldn't fund anything. So what do you expect them to do? So now, what should the Tinubu government do with him? I don't know. He has a year left. So my expectation is that he's going to go on this article and then he will go. Because I guess the new government wants new blood. So but I actually somehow, deep down inside me, I tend to believe that when they sit down with him, they'll realize they need it to end. I think so. Because there are a number of things that he needs to align that have happened. And that's what I think. Yes. When I take him out, but I feel deep down that he won't be immediate. There are several things that I feel needs to align. And I actually think taking him out immediately might be a mistake. That's my own feeling.
On behalf of our club, we're very appreciative of you coming to share knowledge with us. We're hoping that by this token, you have automatically become a member. Yes? Thank you very much, sir.
So membership and pay the member.
Thank you for adding me to your membership, and I accept it. Thank you very much.
And the vice chairman of the JEC has said he will pay your first dues for the year.